Good evening, everyone. It is Professor Oleander, and we are here in Basington, I believe is the name of this place. This is an RAF airbase add-on for MSF 2024, which I think this is the first time I've actually recorded in 2024, and that's me dragging the mouse. It actually is a little bit smoother than that. But this is a third-party add-on that a modder has made. It's actually pretty nice. We've got a couple of B-17s over here, including this one. This is the Microprose early access B-17 that everybody has been kind of talking about, and it is very much an early access. The disclaimer that I'm going to put in at the very beginning is it is very much an early access. I would say a little bit beyond an early alpha. A lot of the systems aren't finished. The developers are wanting as much input from the players as possible as far as what they would like to see added, how far they want us to go or want them to go, and my preference is the A2A B-17 that was in FSX. If they can get it that deep, I'll be more than satisfied. At the bare minimum, I would expect what you could get out of the Aeroplane Heaven Avro Lancaster. So, fair warning to everybody that's kind of on the fence about this. If you don't want an airplane that's not 100% finished, skip this. It's $32 US right now. I think that's $25 if you're in the UK. But I will say this. On the exterior, and I chose this particular airplane for no reason in particular. Yep, no reason at all. But this is actually a little bit different because everybody has been flying the Middle East, so this one's a little bit of variety. But I will say that the model, I mean, it could use some smoothing on the edges. I think it needs a normal map, some bump maps, a little bit too smooth. I think that's part of the reason why the flight model is the way it is. It's not that bad, but it does have its sort of man, it's aggravating. My taskbar keeps popping up. It's not getting in the recording, but it keeps popping up. But just kind of walking around here. It's not a perfect airplane to fly. The controls do feel a little bit off, but for the most part, it's most of the way there. Big old spanker here at the back of it. That's a nautical term. Big old rudder back here. That rudder's arguably too big for the airplane. I think that was one of the complaints the crews had, was that the rudder's a little bit too powerful. You see the plexiglass in there for the waist gunners. You can see the flaps and all down here, the trailing edges of the wings. A lot of detail in the model, and we'll see even more when we get inside. But it is very much a smooth surface. Even though they have the rivets, they're on there, that's just part of the texture. As far as I can tell, they're not actually there, and obviously that would probably hinder the performance of this aircraft. But you can see the Hamilton standard markings on the propellers, a lot of detail on the inside of the nozzles. Yeah, it's actually a really nice model for where it's at. Good bit of texturing on the tires, a little bit of clipping. You can see through the model there, so that's something the devs might want to look at. It's not the end of the world. There's a couple places on the plane that do that, where you can actually see through the texture. That looks just like they put a bulge in the tire, and it looks like that's just what's happened. You got I think that is the VHF antenna there. And the bomb bay does not open, but you can see the bomb bay doors. Don't know what happened there. They got popped out on the other side. Looking inside the wheel well here. I think that's an accumulator tank for the hydraulics. And then, not sure what that pipe right there is. I'd have to go back and look at some of the drawings. But yeah, it's a pretty good model on the outside. Big old nose dome up here. The port where they can stick out another gun. The two cheek guns. Chin turret. So let's hop inside. Okay. One of the things right off the bat, they don't have the windows modeled. You see there's no, I mean, the glass, it's there, but it's not there. If that makes any sort of sense. And this is dawn, so the sun should be coming up here in just a minute. But I will say that they've done a pretty decent job with the interior. You can't hide the yokes, which is kind of annoying. They have this little thing here. So far, the only thing that works on this is crew visibility, and that really only works for the co-pilot. So that's where that is. Let me go back here to one of these other views, so that way I can move around. You can see the radio stacks up here. They do not function at this point. Again, I said this is a very early, it's pretty much in the alpha stages right now. Hydraulic pressure gauge up here. There should be another one down here. This guy right there, that should be your hydraulic pressure gauge. Your oxygen blinkers, your light switch. None of the lights work on this right now. That's your battery voltage indicator, your radio compass for your ADF. This is another compass, PDI indicator, altitude. The knob for the barometer does not, or the altimeter does not work. So I'm just going to go ahead and set that. Then your airspeed indicator. I will talk about this a little bit later. This plane does not, it feels off to me. Now the only thing I'm basing this off of is the DC-3 and the B-17 that I flew for A2A. The DC-3 feels right. In every video that I've ever seen of somebody flying it, you have to like hard over the controls to get it. B-17 is not quite that extreme, but the controls in this do not feel heavy enough. Because you got to remember, this is all cable driven. So the controls are gonna, cables get out of adjustment. It takes a little bit more. It's like you really got to put the input into it to get it to move. Let's see. This guy right here, if you can, I don't know if you can read that or not, but it says destroy special radio, press both buttons simultaneously. This is the detonator for the identification friend or foe radio that's in the back. This was basically the early form of a transponder. This was so you would turn that radio on as you were approaching an airbase, so that way they didn't shoot you down. So if in the event that the plane might get captured, they would press both of these buttons and it would destroy the radio. Obviously, you wouldn't want the enemy, to take that technology and put it into their planes, because they may have an entire squadron coming towards one of your air bases, and if they're broadcasting the frequency that, hey, we're friendlies, you won't know it until they're right on top of them. So that's what that is. Various other things over here. These two I'm not sure about. Glider trip, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Then we have an auxiliary bomb bay control, so your bomb bay open, salvo switch. This is in the event, I'm assuming this is in the event that the bombardier were to be killed. The cage and uncage does not work. I think the turn indicator is working now. It does look like, I have not tried this at night. As a matter of fact, I might do this right now. I'm actually curious. Okay, they do not. Yeah, they do not come up. They look like they were glowing. These would have had radium. I think pretty much everything that's white would have been painted with radium, which would have had a UV light shined on it to make it fluoresce at night. If you've seen the A2A stuff, which I'll probably, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the startup for the first engine on this, and then the startup, and then kind of edit in the startup for the A2A, so you can see where we need to be going with this, or where I would like them to go, which I'm sure they've already seen it, but this is for everybody else's benefit. But these had fluorescent lights, which are, I can't remember if it's these guys or if it's actually up under here, but they're very directed lights, so that you don't have a whole lot of light wastage. Then we've got all the other lights down here, your tail wheel, lock light, bomber call, globe test. This is for a test light. Gear down. Now, in terms of switches, these switches I don't believe are the finals. The real ones would have like a crystal at the top of them. There would be a light underneath. I think that was how they were set up. So that at night the tops of these switches were illuminated. Then you have your feather switches, which also do not work in this version. I believe these are radio switches. They are not modeled yet, or they don't work yet. What else have we got over here? The fire extinguisher control panels are not modeled yet. I think I might have a key bind that is keeping this from, yeah, that's what it was. I was wondering why my brakes weren't working. I've got to go back and readjust some of these key binds. We'll talk about this in a minute. This is one that's not modeled correctly. From what I have seen, and I got to go back and look, I don't remember specifically what this control is. The primer, which is very hard to get to, primer control is right there. It's not modeled yet. The intercoolers are not animated yet. But, the autopilot down here, the C1 autopilot, it's not done yet either. There's a lot of work that they need to do. Trim tabs, you can't do anything with them. The emergency bomb release there, you can't do anything with it. And again, I got to go back in the manuals and see what these guys are. Oxygen regulators, your intercom for your headsets. Another thing that was cool, these flotation things, and then also this guy right here. I thought this was really cool to add onto the back of the seats. If you're familiar with the B-17 cockpit project, this should look very familiar, because that's part of what they base this off of. They said that they have used a couple of different aircraft to base this cockpit off of, but it's very similar layout. The lights are spot on for what was in that cockpit. Oxygen bottles, another oxygen regulator, more oxygen bottles over here. Not sure what that guy is. These are emergency oxygen tanks. This is the top turret. This is where the chief engineer would be. And again, a lot of detailing in this model. And one of his 50 cals. I mean, just all the stuff that they've added. Just stuff that I've never seen anybody go into this much depth as far as making a model. Other thing that I thought was cool, this is your hydraulic pump, and then there's the isolation valve, which is in there, and then they put all the piping, which I thought was cool. And then I think, pretty sure these are accumulator tanks. Then that's the actual hydraulic tank. This guy right here, I'm not 100% sure what it is. And then down here, these I am almost positive, and again, I've got to go back and look. There are, somebody had mentioned in the Discord, they were like, well, there's no fuel tank selector. And it's like, well, they don't have them. They're gravity fed. It's a fail-safe system. They have them like that on purpose. You have a valve that you open, which is actually up here. These top switches right here, these cutoff valves, that's what cuts off the fuel. You don't have a tank selector. And I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that's the way it is. These are transfer switches, and I think it actually says here. Yeah, tank selector, fuel transfer. Left-hand tanks, right-hand tanks. Now the pump, this is the rheostat for your flight suit so that you can stay warm. Radio junction, that is shielded. And so I don't think the fuel transfer pump is in here. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually go that deep. In the A2A video, or in the video that I'm in the process of making, once they get this plane a little bit further along, I have to do a fuel transfer. I'm doing the Blue Spruce route from Goose Bay to North Sarswick to Keflavik to Prestwick, and I have to do a fuel transfer roughly mid-flight, and I have to use A2A's UI, which basically simulates this right here. But there is a transfer pump. You would select which tank you want to swap, and then I cannot remember off the top of my head where that pump switch is. It might be over here somewhere. I'd have to look. But that's where you would swap it, and you see it says Bombay fuel tanks, tank 4. I think the A2A one has the feeder tanks. No, it doesn't. It just has tank 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and then the Bombay tanks. And speaking of Bombay, we'll go through this door, and we're in the Bombay. Now, people have said have varying opinions about the all-clad stenciling that's in here. I don't mind it so much. I think it's actually cool for it to be on here while it's in early access, because it's like the plane's being built out and everything. These would have been painted over. You wouldn't see the stenciling in it. They would have made it all one color. It's also a little bit too shiny. Some of the things in here, the texturing needs some passes over to weather it. You get some good weathering up here. The other thing that's really cool is all of the flight controls. All the cables here for the flight controls. You know, all that. So that's very cool to see. I don't think they move. Yeah, I would be shocked if they did. So going back here to the navigator, or the radio man station, and he's got him a little screen there. His radios. Let's see, he's got his oxygen winker, oxygen control. And he's got his same thing as up front. Electrical connections, another radio sets, another auxiliary one. You see these emergency tanks all over the place, and I'm sure these are going to get fleshed out a little bit more. Yeah, I don't need you telling me that. I don't know why it does that. It's actually doing really well. This one I thought was really cool. Again, it doesn't have the... I don't remember if there was supposed to be glass in that or not. But we can go down into the ball turret. And you can see a not so flattering view of the ball turret gunner. But you can see the cabling here to help keep the guns level. As the gun moves around. So nice little touches. Even up in here, places that you're not normally going to see, they put stuff in it. I mean, it's just the amount of detail that they put in this thing is ridiculous. This is way more than A2A put in theirs, and of course that was the limitations of FSX, but still. You've got the hoppers here for your ammo belts, waist gunners. You've got the little catch bags here for the shells, so that way you're not stepping all over them. And again, you've got the all-clad stenciling, and right now I don't mind it so much. Now, right now, these guys don't move around. They're pretty much static. And again, you've got some more of the boot heaters. You can change your microphones. You come back here. We run across the APU, the so-called putt-putt. This right now, I'm sure they're going to use it. They wouldn't have gone through the trouble of putting it in here. But this is the auxiliary power unit that you would use to start up the engine, or you'd use it for power before you started up the engine so you don't drain the batteries. Fire extinguisher, back crew door, that should be a light. None of the lighting is done in the game yet. Then we've got a tail wheel back here, and then the mechanism, the jack screw here that will raise up the tail gear, or the tail wheel. I feel like there's a piece missing off of this, that way that it works. But if we continue back here, we get into no man's land in the tail gunner position. He's got two hoppers back here for his ammo belts, and then he has the updated sight. It's not the stick, it just kind of points out of the tail section back here. He's got an actual dedicated sight so that he can keep an eye on the formation behind him. So let's go back up front. We'll walk back through here again, and again you've got, they're not modeled. I think this one might be the rudder. Yeah, they don't move, but just the cabling that's back here. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff, and it's something that I would kind of expect from Microprose. One thing I will point out is there are some LOD issues. You can see the ball turret popping in and out. As a matter of fact, if I actually go to, I think it's escape, you see the plane disappears. And it may be my settings, but that is something that I've noticed. Check something here. Something that I've noticed is that the LODs, they probably don't have them just yet. So now, let's see. Where is the hatch? Somewhere up here is the hatch that goes down into the bomber compartment. It might be right there. Where does this come up? Okay, so that would be the pull thing to get through there. So probably the worst place, well, you've got a hatch right here you can get out of in an emergency, but probably the worst place to be is up there in the cockpit, because you've got to get down through here to get out. So we're down here in the belly of the beast. We got more oxygen tanks, and this guy, I don't remember what he is. Did he say? I can't read it. So lots of stuff that they've added in here. It's gonna be really nice to see this get a little bit more fleshed out. So we come up here to the navigator. There's a little work desk here. He'd have his maps and everything. There would be a drift gauge right here. What this is the drift gauge, so that way they can correct for wind. This would have been back in the days where radio navigation would have been very hard, especially over enemy territory. And again, more cables showing how they kept the gun mounts level so that they could swing. And I think that just has a spring on it. It goes back through here and it just dead ends, but I think that would have had some kind of weighted spring on it to keep tension on it, so it always wants to return. Then we come up here to the bombardier's position. He's got this control for the chin turret, which this would have been very similar to what the B-29s would have had, because all the B-29s, with the exception of maybe one or two gun places, are electronically controlled, like shooting a video game. Then the bombardier station here, it's not completely modeled out. The timing fuses, God, I can't remember what this thing was called, But this is set, it's like the salvo switch or something like that. Well, salvo switch here. This is the interval selector. And then we have the infamous Norden bomb sight. I can't get any further. The most secretive piece of equipment in the United States Army during World War II. Little did they know it was probably, we could have probably given it to the enemy and been a lot better off. Anyway, so that is the systems in a nutshell that are in the game. Now, I really need to adjust my curves a little bit on my controls, but let's go through starting this up and what works and what don't work. Alright, so I'm going to start this the way that I would normally start. And I'm actually going to go do this here. I hate the way that 24 handles things. Alright, so we're going to turn all the battery switches on, if it'll let me. There we go. All the battery switches on. They need to widen the hitbox up on these a little bit. Then we're going to come up here, and on some models, this is the main power and the magneto switch. I think on the one that's on FSX, it's just the magneto switch. So we'll turn that on. There's no sound for it. We can't check the battery voltage, so we'll just throw the inverter on. And the hydraulic control pump does not work, so we can't pump any hydraulic pressure. And you see that our lights have come on, so we've got a landing gear indication. We've also got our air filter indications. You're supposed to open up the cowls, and at this point the cowl flap animation does not work. It's not animated, so to speak. I don't know how much, I haven't really seen how much they can do in terms of I forgot where I was going with that. I don't know how much control these actually have over temperature. That's what I was going to say. So moving over here, I said earlier I was going to talk about these. They have modeled these where each individual one is the air filter switch for the engines. These are wrong. These are the oil dilution switches. These are for cold weather. If you haven't changed your oil, or if you can't change your oil and you're in a very cold environment, I can't remember if it's fuel or alcohol that it puts into the oil, and it should say over here, do not dilute for over 4 minutes. It's a very, very small amount that you're putting in there to help thin the oil out so the engines will actually roll over. This is the actual switch to turn all these on. And then I think this is, you can vary it a little bit. That's like a shutter switch. But we're going to go with what we got, and we're going to turn all the air filters on. Now, the fuel shutoff switches are already on. They're in the open position. And we would go ahead and turn all the fuel pumps on. These are all the booster pumps. They come on. And then you would go 1, 2, 3, 4 across. But the way that they have it modeled right now is that when you do your starting mesh, these will automatically go to auto rich. They actually go to emergency rich. I've already submitted that as a thing, and I think they're going to look at that in the future. I don't like it where it does it automatically. It's like, let me do it. We're going to go ahead and turn all the mag switches on. Right now they only have both. You can't do left or right. Alright, so that's that. Other thing that I have is, for me, the throttles are only supposed to be open to about right there. But if I remember right, I have to open them to about right there to get 1,000 RPM. And then I'll go ahead and put that at high RPM for the props. And we're ready to start. So we'll start engine number 1. Let me get out here so that way you can see it. Now, I'm going to forewarn you. This is the first plane Microprose has made for a simulator that they did not design. So this is the first time they've ever made a plane for another simulator. And I'm also going to say this about the sounds. I know that they have said they recorded the sounds directly from a B-17, Sentimental Journey. I don't know what they used to record it. I do know that Flight Sim 2024 is a very weird sound system, and they know about it. It's something that they're looking at. So I'm saying that right up front. The sounds you're going to hear are not final. They're not horrible. They're just not right. Okay. That being said, let's get this thing started. So usually you would do the inertial starter switch on the left, and then you would mesh on the right. If you've seen how I started on DC3, same thing. They have them bound together. I think they're just doing that right now it's just to get this thing in a flyable state, so that way people can get their hands on it. Because like I said, they've never made an aircraft for this. So I think they're just wanting to get feedback from people. So let's see if it'll start. See how it comes to emergency rich. Let's see if it'll actually start. There we go. Like I said, it's not horrible. It needs more bass. It has an echo to it. And I think that's something in the sound system. They are probably going to have to go back and re-record that. Is going to be my guess. I'm going to leave the fuel booster pumps on, because if I turn them off, you see how low the pressure gets? It's down to like 1 pound. I'm going to leave it on. So that way I don't get a fuel pressure light on my Bravo. Alright, so that started. Let's do number 2. Don't get any smoke for that one. Alright, number 3. A little bit of an angry engine. And number 4. Smoke is not in the right spot. Okay. 4 engines, 4 good starts. I'm going to back these up to where they're supposed to be. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I'm hearing where the sounds are not synced up. It's about right there. That's the thing that I'm hearing right now. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. They've got that backwards, by the way. The arrow's backwards. See how it tells you to push it up? I've got a keybind for that that does not work. It's the same one that I use on the DC3. Alright, we've set the altimeter. So what I'll probably do is I'll right around in here. You probably see me go over to the A2A. So okay, so we find ourselves here in FSX, and we're going to take a look at the A2A B-17 with the AccuSim add-on, which is about the most accurate that you can get with a B-17 that's out there. This is probably 10 years old at this point. It might be a little bit more than that. But we'll go ahead and open these windows up. One of the things they model is fogging on the inside of the windows. We'll open those up a little bit. Most of this is basically the same. One difference is that the crash switch here, as it's sometimes called, this is just a master ignition switch. It only works your magnetos. This doesn't control the main power. So normally what we would do is we would come down here, you turn on all 3 batteries, and then you would go up here and you would turn on your master ignition, and then you'd get power to all of them at one time. Usually what you do is you would put this to alternate. You would test your batteries individually, check them for power, and then you would you check them for health anyway, and then once you got good ones, you would swap over to your normal inverter. Alternate is your backup. Then you would come up here, you test your alarm. I know that's loud. It says test it a few times, and then for hydraulic pressure, which is our gauge right here, you can either come over to the co-pilot seat and pump, and as you can see here, get just a very tiny amount of pressure build up. And as I'll point out in the other video, the hydraulic pump is actually right over in this area. You would run your hydraulic pump. Get about 200 pounds on it. It takes over into manual or into automatic. It's very loud because it's in the cockpit area. One of the things I'm going to do is throw the headphones on so it's not quite as loud. And from here, now that we have hydraulic pressure, we can go ahead and tell one of the tail gunners to start up the APU. And as soon as we get power on that, we can go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and get the fuel cutoff switches on. And you notice that they are caged. We'll put that back down on top of them. Our power is going to be coming online. See our AC voltage gauge here jump. Get the magic barrow reference to make sure that we're good. Now I talk about the air filters over here. This is the switch. It's not 100% modeled correctly here. We're going to go ahead and turn that on. And you'll see these lights come on one by one. There's actual doors in the wings that are going to be closing. They should be coming on here in just a second. There they go. Another thing that I want to point out is I had talked about the fuel transfer switch. You've seen them. It'll be in the other portion of the video. I don't think I've talked about it at this point. These were the transfer switches that I was talking about that were right by the bomb bay door, or the door that leads into the catwalk for the bomb bay. And basically you would just, like if we put bomb bay fuel tanks in here and we fill them up, you would select one into another tank and then you do a transfer. Okay. And like say if I empty that tank out and I do this, you can hear that there's different tones for different situations. So like right now, this is an empty tank, so it's running normally. Let's say I empty this one out. Hear the pump change. And same thing if I go ahead and I fill this up. Same thing. You get a tone change. So that's an interesting thing. I actually do that in my video where I'm flying this thing over, I think it's towards Keflavik, which coincidentally that's where we are in this one. This isn't the plane that I flew, but I chose Keflavik because it's well, Greenland. Okay, so talk about the fuel transfer. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to mention with that was there are no fuel selector switches, you've got a tank for each one of your engines, and they're all gravity feed. It's just a redundancy thing. Your fuel cutoff switches, it's basically a electromagnetic. I think it's electromagnetic. It you need power to hold it open, and then when it's normally closed valves. If you lose power, it shuts. So you have to have power to hold it open, and that's just a redundancy thing. So there is no fuel selector on this aircraft. It's all gravity feed. I'm gonna go ahead and turn on the lights. I don't know if they're gonna show up. Oh, they are. So there's you can just see the fluorescent, and then if I go to UV, yeah, it's probably not gonna show. But all of the gauges here would have, they're green. Basically glow in the dark. So we'll go ahead and turn on the master ignition. We've got all those situated. The next thing to do, let me hop over into the co-pilot seat. We'll go ahead and open up the cowl flaps. We'll get all these cowl flaps open. And I think I do mention this in the other video. Everything that's hydraulic, so like if you keep this open like that, that motor is still running. You would go back to the neutral position, which would be right there, the locked position. Basically what that does is that neutralizes all of your stuff. Same thing if you're closing them. See the cowl flaps closing there on number 4. You would go back to the locked position. And that's just how hydraulic systems worked back in the day. They didn't have bypass or anything. They weren't momentary switches. Same thing with the flaps. You just flip it. It runs until you put it back to neutral. You flip it, it runs back to neutral. And same thing going up. You just let it run.
Flaps up.
And then when it gets there, neutral. Otherwise, it's just sitting there turning. The motor is just sitting there trying to run. Same thing with the gear switch. I'm not going to do that now for obvious reasons. There's our landing lights. We're going to turn those back off. We've got our recognition lights here. These are other recognition lights. So these are green, white, and amber. They're underneath the belly of the plane. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else here. This is for if we have the when we're up in the air, you would check this light with this one right here, and basically that just tells you that it's working. Cage and uncaged. You see there, you got the flag for cage. That's not modeled in the Microprose one right now. Same thing for your gyro switches, and then your altimeter calibration, all that stuff over here. Anyway, this is just for comparison. I'm just going through some of the stuff that where I'm hoping they're headed. So the next thing we would do is we take all of our intercoolers, take them down to cold, and we're going to go in the book starting order of 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 1. We'll take our fire extinguisher to number 1. Here, prop control is high RPM. Idle cutoff. Fuel selectors are on. The way this is modeled is that you won't get any fuel pressure until you open up your mixtures, but we would turn on all of our... That's interesting. I don't know why you would get no fuel flow for this. So we're going to do this a little bit backwards. We're going to pull number 1 down to auto rich. Now the one thing that I will note is when you start the engines on the Microprose, when they go to emergency rich, see this wire right here? That wire is meant to be broke. That's your war emergency power. That is basically you just dump fuel on the engines and it's balls to the wall, wide open. you're trying to get away from something. There is a phrase for that. I think it's breaking the wire or something like that. Down to the wire or something. We just want auto rich right there to that line. Okay. We'll turn on booster pump number 1. Now, I think the manuals say to go ahead and turn on all the magnetos, so we'll just go ahead and do that now. Takes a little bit of time. Me, that's just wastage. We got our fuel pressure. We're running at roughly, what is it going to tell me? 8.4 psi. Alright. We need to prime our engine. So 2 pumps on the primer here.
Captain, we need our engine fuel booster on for the engine to start.
Did I not turn that on? Did turn on number 1. You're making me question myself. Yeah. Yeah, that's number 1. I don't know. I don't know what he's smoking. Anyway. Well, it doesn't seem like it's pumping. Well, let's just turn them all on then. We'll just pull them all down to idle cutoff. It's probably a me thing. But you'll hear it's pumping now. Alright. And this is something that's different in the Microprose one. So you have an inertial starter. Put it start. And then mesh.
Clear prop. Engine 1, starting.
It starts right up. I need to increase the throttle just a little bit.
Oil pressure is rising.
I do like the AccuSim cruise on here. Now these sounds aren't, they're good for the time. This was 10 years ago. And we should be idling about 1,000 RPM. Alright, let's go ahead and start number 2. Move our primer number 2, move this to inboard, 2 pumps. And then we will roll it up. We'll hear the clear prop.
Clear prop.
Oops.
Engine 2, starting. Oil pressure is rising.
One of the things that I'll note is you'll see these guys sitting here bouncing around. They won't really level out until we get number 3 running. And let's see, you can do your static tube, air tube, and then there's I can't remember where it is now, but the vacuum selector. There it is. You can pick one or the other. Alright, so let's get number 3. Go ahead and start rolling it. Fire extinguisher to the inboard.
Clear prop.
Mesh.
Engine 3 starting. Oil pressure is coming up.
And you get smoke out of these two. I didn't talk about this, but I've got the Msfs bell. Yeah, figure that out. Alright. Let's go down here and get number 4. Drop the audio down just a little bit. Switch these.
turboprop.
Engine 4 is starting up. Oil pressure is coming up.
Put this back to off. Come over here. Close these windows. We can switch on our generators. And we can tell our crewmen to turn off the
I'm
APU.
on it, Captain.
And we can hand over the
Sir,
cows
got it.
and the intercooler. And that's pretty much it. The other thing that I will point out is I'm going to run these engines up just a little bit. So that they'll warm up a little bit faster. Is talk about the turbos. So in the Microprose one now, it's very hard to get your manifold pressure up. You would need your turbos. So you basically, we could test these on the ground. Shouldn't run it too hard right now. It doesn't really matter. But see how much of a difference it makes. So we're going to start at 15. And I go all the way up to 8. See how it runs up to 20? So I'm going to increase the throttles, get it up to about 30. Alright, and I'm going to drop the turbo down. See how much we lose? So when we go to takeoff power, that's full power there without it. And as I bring that on, it goes straight to 45. Now these are a little bit out of trim. You can trim them with these potentiometers here. I'm not going to worry about it. But I mean, you roll your potentiometers back until they get to 45, and like that one needs to come up a little bit. And you would basically roll them until you get to 45 inches. So let's bring this back. And that's also your takeoff power would be 8.
Captain, warmed up, ready to go.
You can go beyond that. You have to switch your lockout here, and then we can go to 10. That's also war emergency power. But we're not going to do that. So that is just some of the systems at the A2A models that I would love to see done in the Micropose system. So that's really all I have to say about that in this video. So we'll finish up with the taking the Microprose one out for a flight. We're started. Oil temperatures are where they need to be. Cylinder temperatures are where they need to be. And again, I'm just kind of guessing at a lot of this stuff because they don't have stuff simulated. So things like the turbos, when we go to take off, you would use your turbo. You'd have that spooled up to like an 8 locked in, and then you run your throttles wide open, then you start backing your turbo off. The things that I'm going to say are the tail wheel animation does not work. The ground handling is rough. It feels like the tail wheel does not work, or the tail wheel is not gimbaling. The flight model feels very light. That's what I have seen. Now I have this thing completely loaded. It is 63,000 pounds, max is 65. So I have not flown this that heavy yet, so I'm actually curious to see how much different it is. But the thing that I understand is they you had to work these things to get them to turn over, and you had to turn it and then wait, and it would just slowly start to lumber that way. And the same thing going this way, you'd slowly start to lumber that way. So right now it feels very linear. You know, it's basically a 1-to-1. If I turn it like that, it wants to go like that. If I pull back on it, it wants to go up and immediately. Since we're so heavy, we're going to do flaps. Another thing, I hear flaps working. They've got the flaps notched. That's fine for right now. In reality, that's just a hydraulic switch, which right now in game it's not modeled, but it's just a hydraulic switch. You would flip it to the on position or to the down position, and it would roll until you flip it back to neutral. And then when you go up, you would push it forward, and it would go up, and you would raise the flaps until you put it back to neutral. Most of the hydraulic switches in this plane are like that. Even the gear switch. Gear down, you would pull it to you, it would run. The pump is actually running, or that pump is actually running. And then even when it gets up, it runs. You have to put it back into neutral to keep it from burning up. The DC-3 is the same way. That's just the way the hydraulic systems worked back in that time. Alright, enough talking. Let's figure out where we're going to take off. Probably should have looked at the runways. I know there's a runway directly behind me, so that's the one we're going to go off of. But I'm getting that echo, and it's reverb from all these engines running independently. And that's just something they'll have to figure out. So, turn off the parking brake. Can't remember which one I got to set over here. Alright, stand by. Okay, we're back. That was operator error. I forgot that on my DC-6, which is the control setup that I'm using for this one, I've got two of my control switches. One of them is for engine off, which is actually for the reverser for the propellers. Now, let's get going. Let's see. That one is the brake. And let's just make sure it starts moving. Okay, brakes in. The other thing is, it feels like I have to give a lot more throttle than I should need to get this thing to go when it's on the ground. And that may be that might just be from the ground being so sticky. Bring your audio down just a little bit. Now that is full right rudder. You see how the tail wheel's not moving? I think it's just because the way the game works is it's treating that as scraping the ground. I could be wrong. But once this thing's on pavement, man, it wants to roll like crazy. And I think the air model is just too slippery for this aircraft. I mean, even flying the DC-3 has got a lot more drag when it's on the ground. It's a lot more lumbering, and it's a smaller aircraft than this one is. Again, full right rudder. I can try. To do that. It just doesn't feel like it wants to turn. Now, I've never been on this airfield before. I think this is a runway right here. Man, I hate that menu. Really wish that they would come up with a way to get rid of it. We'll go down to the end of this one and turn around. I don't even know where the wind is. Don't care. Get inside here. But again, it's got that. You've got that. Like, you can tell it's 4 engines and they're not all happy. There's just, it's like echo on top of echo on top of echo. Alright, let's back you down. And the other thing that's really hard to tell is because they don't have the turbo, you see how my manifold pressure hadn't even moved. And even without the turbos on, you should see that move. And for whatever reason, my turn indicator is pegged out there. And I've got full left brake just trying to get this thing to turn. Give it some right engines. But yeah, for whatever reason, my turn indicator is like all the way to the right. The other thing is the tail wheel lock light does not work. Landing gear light works. Carb filters are on. At this point, we would get down to the end of the runway. We'd do our run up and everything. I'm not going to bother with that. Let's see what else. Everything else looks good over here. Outside air temperature indicator. I'm not sure if that is correct. I'm going to assume it's not. This is the UK in October. So I'm going to say that's probably not working. Oh, get on the runway. Go down here and do our S turn. This plane does not need a whole lot of runway. It should need. We're going to see how much it needs with a full load. Yeah, there you see we're right at 63,000 pounds. So I'm curious to see how it flies with a simulated bomb load. I got a feeling it's not going to be that much different. Alright, let's get down here and make our turn. I honestly don't think that these engines are making much of a difference in the way of turning. It's still dragging. I mean, I'm almost fully on the brakes. It almost feels like the differential brake's not even working. We pull 3 back. There we go, it's turning now. Alright. Go out here so I can get lined up. And there you see there's another place where you can see through the ground, through the dorsal turret, or dorsal gun. Alright, let's get it lined up right here. Step on the brakes, lock tail wheel. Now, the way you would take off, 100 mile an hour. Here a little bit. 100 mile an hour as indicated on our speed. It's not a 3-point takeoff per se. It is called a tail low takeoff. So the tail is going to raise up. It's just not going to raise up that much. You don't want it to raise up that much. So I'm going to keep just a little bit of back pressure on the yoke. And I can't do this the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to go up like 20 inches, let off, and all that. Because you have to raise the throttle so high, I'm just going to get them up to something about that right there. And then off we go. Full power. Feels heavier. Airspeed's alive. There's roughly 80. And it's already taken off. There it goes. Gear up. Okay, so it definitely feels heavier. Trying to let it accelerate up to about 120. That's about good. Gonna get up a little bit more before some trim put in this thing. I'll be honest, it actually feels pretty good now with a bunch of weight in it. I still think it's climbing just a little. It almost feels a little bit too overpowered still. 150 or so, 160. Actually, I think 140 is what's prescribed. And let's see, about 700 feet per minute. Get this rolled out of it. Pull up the flaps. Probably went just a little bit too long. I should have pulled them up at 120, but that's okay. Trim for speed. We must have a crosswind because I feel this thing turning. I'm not going to go up too high. We'll try and come back in and see how it does on landing because I have yet to land this thing yet. So, thoughts on the flight model with a heavy load on it. This feels about right. It's not as twitchy. See how I can put the inputs in and it's taking it a little bit? This is what feels right. This is how I'm expecting it. So I put an input in, and there's a little bit of lag behind it. Alright, we're gonna level off here. We'll pull my power back some. Actually, I'm gonna leave the manifold pressure alone, pull this back to about 23. And again, that's one of the things they got to work on. The blending of the power settings. This thing settled off here. Gonna want to climb as the speed comes up. This does not sound bad. With the lower power, you can still hear some of that reverb, but for the most part, this doesn't sound terrible. That's a 2300. Where it gets really bad is when, so for cruise power, I would bring it back to about 1800. Actually, we're loaded down, so it's going to be about 20, 21. But when you get down to about 18, which is where your lean setting would be, it gets a lope in it that's kind of annoying. But still, that doesn't sound bad out here. In here, it gets a little annoying. Get that wong, 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 wong. It's almost like the props are desynced. I'm going to raise it up just a little bit. Okay. Some more airspeed up here. Let's bring this thing around. So if you want the thing to feel more accurate, fully load the thing down, and that's actually pretty close. Oh, come on up. It was going, 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 and then it didn't. think we're just gonna... That might be it right there. Yeah, it's gonna want to pop up now because we've got... Actually, I see the airfield. I will say this about Flight Sim is that the EU, that England has a lot nicer textures than the US does. Pretty sure that's the airfield, isn't it? Well, looked like the airfield. I don't feel like bringing up the map, but I guess I should. Let's see. Why is it not going to show me my map? Not going to worry with it. Let's just find a nice field, shall we? I mean, I could do this. I know you got a little bit of a stutter. I'm actually pulling up an avgraph on my other screen so I can see where I'm at. Actually, I'm not that far from Heathfield. I'm heading toward Devon, so should be seeing it like right off over in here. Man, you gotta slow down. Let me get out here so I can see. That looks like it right there. Where's that it? Is that it over here? I think that is it over here. According to the chart, I'm flying directly towards it. If not, we're gonna see how it does in a simulated emergency landing. That's where that looks like an airport. I think that is an airport. But it's saying I'm like right on top of it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Antiquated. Seems like it fits the bill. So let's land here. Disused. I should probably have seen that note. So we'll land there. How about that? There is another airport. This is an airport, so we'll just go to this one. Thought it was. Alright. Approach. We don't need approach. We're coming in. We're going to pretend we got wounded on board, and we just got to get this thing down to the ground. And I'm trying to remember the procedures from memory. I know one of them is to, let's see here, quarter. And then gear down. Which it does look like they have the gear locked out. Or maybe not. Come in hot and heavy. I believe 2600 is the... 25, 50, 20, something like that. Alright, up trim, up trim, up trim. Alright, throw the boat anchors out. Almost full. There we go. it float so that way we don't slam, which we slammed anyway. Try not to let it slam again. Better. I'm going to blame the overinflated tires. How about that? Let's go ahead and kill it. So not a bad plane. Still has some work to do. But I'm happy with it so far. Is it perfect? Why don't I just destroy everything, huh? Alright, flaps are all up. And we'll just let it roll on out here. I got too much stuff on my desk. That was one of my surround speakers. Let's go left here. How about that? We'll just make an emergency left-hand turn. All the passengers should have their seat trays in the upright position. I'm sure the crew is very mad at me at this point, but lost track of the airfield, wasn't even track of where I'm going. We'll just keep it right here. How about that? So this is, it's very much a work in progress. Let me kill these engines. Yeah, no shutdown sound. So that's one of the big things. For the most part, I'm more impressed with the model than a lot of the other stuff. The systems obviously need work, but for the most part, where they are, this is a good basis to build off of. How in depth they're going to go, who's to say? And again, this should have the A2A stuff in there as well. One thing I didn't check. Yeah, you can't see the pitch changing, which I can't remember. I think the engine does have to be running to see that. But anyway, so a good start. So I'm kind of curious to see where they go from this and see how much of this they actually model. If they can get it anywhere near A2A, I'll be happy. So with that being said, I am out of here, and I'll see you next time.